Chapter 28, verses 1 through 100. 1. How often do you human beings of earth make yourselves wrong pictures of words because you do not understand them in their actual term and value, as is the case, for example, with the word truth, which you push into the abyss of your belief in a god, a tin god, or a human being whom you high-stylize to an idol. High-stylize equals to make something appear to be more important or better than he/she it in reality is, or to make something appear to be something that he/she it in reality is not. 2. You search for the truth in a religious, ideological, or philosophical belief, and do not understand the falseness of the belief, which has nothing whatsoever to do with the truth, which alone is given in the certainty and recognition of the reality. 3. If you search for the truth without imposing any requirements, then you will find it only in the certainty and recognition of the reality, because only what corresponds to the reality is truth, but never a belief of any fashion, because it is in every wise always unreal, unsubstantial, and unprovable, in contrariety to the effective truth which is based on provable reality. 4. But you human beings of earth, you live in complete confusion, far from the truth of the creation and its laws and recommendations, hanging on to false belief forms in your thoughts, wherethrough you glorify invented godheads, tin gods and human beings as idols. 5. And you understand neither pictures of the term spiritual, nor the spirituality, nor the picture of the term spirit form. So you do not know that these pictures and terms are not identical with your consciousness, the evolution of which you should be consciously integrated into, which you, however, do not understand. Nor do you understand that you bring forth your ideas as well as your thoughts, and the thereout resulting feelings through the consciousness, and not through the spirit I. The spirit form that animates you. Your spirit, i.e. your spirit form that animates you, is of purely creational energetical nature, and is only given to you to animate your consciousness and your body, whereas your material consciousness alone is that factor out of which you create your ideas and thoughts, etc., which on the contrary is not possible for your spirit, i.e. your spirit form. The spirit in you only integrates into itself the essence of the knowledge, i.e. the wisdom created out of your consciousness, and evolves with it, whereas the consciousness evolves automatically through its activity of the researching and learning. 6. But you do not understand these things and live in complete confusion because of the false teachings of the religions, ideologies, and philosophies. And this confusion shows itself in everything that you bring about through your consciousness in terms of your ideas and thoughts and the feelings resulting out of them, as however also in all your activity and deeds. 7. In your confusion, you want to make the real truth to your helpful slave, which shall only serve for the benefit of you small knowing human beings of earth, and bring you rescue when in hardship, although you have no idea what the truth really is, and that it only exists in the certainty and recognition of the reality, but not in any belief as you assume in your evil erroneous assumption. 8. In the rescue which shall be brought to you through the truth, you make yourselves a wrong picture of this, which is why you expect requirementless help from it, and in so doing you exclude everything that belongs to the truth, such as the absolute reality, and everything that is included therein, such as the fairness, the true love, the peace, the freedom and harmony, the righteousness, responsibility, conscientiousness, and what is fair. 9. Search in the words and terms for the true pictures, i.e. the true contents, and think for once about yourselves thoroughly, and illuminate and fathom your thoughts and feelings clearly and factually without self-glossing over in order to get to the true bottom of them and to recognize and understand them. And if you do that, then you will have to realize that your entire thought and feeling world has never been based on anything else other than demanding wish fulfillments as well as help and rescue, which you expect from your fabulated godheads, tin gods, and idolized human beings. 10. Of course, you do not call your demands on your godheads, tin gods, and idolized human beings for help, rescue, and wishes by its true name, namely doggish submissive and beseeching begging, as this corresponds to the kind of your miseducated and mis-driven inner nature. Instead, you describe your wrong volition and subservient begging as prayers and devotion and belief. 11. You put on a small cloak of the mendaciousness and at the same time of the submissive servitude. In so doing, you deny yourselves and also fall into hypocrisy, so that nothing good and sincere results out of this, because everything that you practice in your whole doing Even during your self-humiliating prayers and beggings to your Godhead, your tin God, or your idolized human being, is full of unhonesty and full of terrible things. 12. And all of you amongst you human beings of earth who go forth full of unfairness, truth and knowledgeness. Therefore, however full of belief in religions, ideologies, or philosophies, be finally true and honest towards yourselves, and indeed so de-preachingly that you tremble at the recognition of what you have done throughout your life that was wrong and against truth, and because of that have led a life of the ignominy. 13. All those amongst you who are overbearing, self-willed, and unsatisfied in your belief, you are also hypocritical and superficial, and if affliction and hardship strike you, you wallow in self-pity and hope for the help from others, whereas you yourselves are without any real feelings for others when others are struck by affliction and hardship, because you think in the frame of your own skin being the closest to you, and that the others shall help themselves. 14. Those amongst you human beings of earth who are overbearing, self-willed, and unsatisfied, you should ask yourselves what kind of human beings you are in the presence of the almightiness, sublimity and harmony of the creation which activates and directs for you, so that you have everything that you need for life, and that you can use as you like, which you, however, in your overbearingness and boastfulness, entirely take and use as an implicitness and without gratitude. 15. You live in an unbelievably megalomaniacal conceitedness and believe that you could create peace, freedom, and harmony amongst your humankind with the enforcement of your illogical, and with regard to the life, strange laws and ordinances that are made through your illogical kind of thinking. But your laws and ordinances are not in consonance with the creational laws and recommendations and therefore bring, instead of love, regulation, peace, freedom, and harmony, only coercion, unfreedom, hatred, unpeace, and disharmony. 16. You do not try to obtain your volition for love, peace, freedom, and harmony through the truth of the creational laws and recommendations, not through intellect and rationality, and not through true discernment and logic, but instead through a wrong volition and irresponsible cleverness and pathological dumb mode of thinking. Through this you look to gain advantages for yourselves with regard to positions, estimation, titles, goods and chattels and riches, and to achieve this you do everything. And do not realize that in doing so you bring only disadvantage to yourselves as well as to your next one and fellow human being, and even to your whole humankind. 17. Everything weighs on you like a heavy burden which you carry due to your own guilt, and which you cannot put down, as it also cannot be solved and abrogated through the law of the interaction because of your wrongdoing, unless you turn to the real truth, and through it are able to free yourselves therefrom by changing yourselves in your volition, and indeed to the good, the best, and the right. 18. Only if you change to the good, best, and right, and direct yourselves at this in upright volition, will you be saved from a fall into even deeper abysses than the ones into which you have already fallen. Only through your honest volition and endeavor can you tear away the impeding hindrances in you, which have already for so long and so far unstoppably been crushing down upon you with all evil, and which have been letting you persist in consciousness, indolence, and conceitedness, wherethrough you have up to now been persisting in the reflecting on the evil which is far away from the truth and far from all the creational laws and recommendations. 19. Put an end to your knowledge darkness and let the evil, the unright, the unfairness and unrighteousness, as well as the consciencelessness and irresponsibility break down in you, and let the true love, harmony, freedom, as well as the peace become truth in you and in your whole humankind, so that you learn to live the true life in order to end your wars, your hatred and your jealousy, as well as your crimes and all the other terrible things. 20. Let all the terrible things on your world and in you break down and swing the word of the true love and the real truth in you and amongst all human beings upwards, so that it becomes victorious and resounds through the whole world, and that all can hear it, learn out of it, and live according to it. 21. Consider, however, the requirement that everyone amongst you human beings of earth must make his or her own efforts to recognize the truth and follow it, because only then, when every single one of you changes developmentally, can everything spread over the whole humankind and make it into a truthful oneness from out of which all the terrible things through which you have been living since time immemorial, in wars and hatred, in jealousy, unpeace, unfreedom, crime, terror, as well as in disharmony and many other terrible things, are jointly fought against and resolved. 22. Do not doubtingly let the possibility pass you by to change everything to the good, the best, and right by following the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, that is to say, the teaching of the prophets, the goblet of the truth. 23. However, if you do not bring forward the energy and power and the intellect and the rationality in yourselves to follow the teaching, then everything that you undertake for the love, freedom, and harmony as well as for the peace will be to no avail to you, because you will continue to do the wrong things and bring upon your world and yourselves war, hatred, terror, overpopulation, and every conceivable terrible thing. Because, due to your unintellect and your irrationality, you will never be in the situation of understanding that moment through which you can find the way to the truthfully progress as well as to the true love and love for the next one, to the freedom, harmony, and to the peace. 24. Truly, your rescue lies in the following of the truth in accordance with the creational laws and recommendations. Therefore, you must accept the word of the truth and the truth itself in order to free yourselves from the bonds of the evil, which hold you down in misconception and falsification of the real truth. 25. Since time immemorial, you have been poisoned through false teachings of false prophets and endangered through wrong explanations of the truth, which you have made in falsifications into religions, ideologies, and philosophies, and into belief cults of godheads, tin gods, and idolized human beings. In doing so, however, you have also disfigured up to the point of unrecognizability all freshness, all energy and power, as well as all clarity of the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, and enwrap them with lies and with damage-bringing calumnies while creating wrong and religious, ideological, and philosophical belief forms and cults out of them, through which you have fallen into a consciousness indolence, wherethrough you continue to run further and further into depravity until you find the real truth, and hence the creational laws and recommendations, and follow these. 26. So beware of the depravity bringing false irrational teachings of the religions, ideologies, and philosophies, because through them you will be led only into a seducing slumber of the untruth, deception, and the guidance into the unreal, which ultimately turns into the deep sleep of the depravity out of which you will no longer be able to awaken during the time of your life. 27. Consider that no true love lies in what the religions, sects, ideologies, and philosophies teach you with regard to the indulgence and all-forgiving goodness of the invented godheads, tin gods, and idolized human beings. Instead, the whole thing is falseness and a deluding drug for you, which only forces the alertness of your consciousness in a tiredness and weakens it, so that in the end it wanes and forces upon you a belief out of which you can hardly free yourselves in good time once you have been befallen by it. 28. Only your sharp rationality and your clear intellect can get through the tiredness of the delusion and open the way to the real truth as well as to the true love which leads you to your inner way of the truth, which is itself the truth and the culmination point. 29. Pure rationality and clear intellect know no extenuations, no lies, and no calumnies, just as they also know no excuse for pretenses, such as are practiced through the religious, ideological, and philosophical belief. And for this reason, you human beings of earth, you who are only too fond of pretending something to yourselves or let something be pretended to you through a belief, you are ruthless against yourselves and in reality hurt yourselves very heavily there, wherein you the intellect and the rationality to the truth-finding are not functioning correctly. 30. The weakness in which you are caught through your religious, ideological, sectarian, or philosophical belief brings great disadvantage to you as individuals and to the whole humankind, because in this weakness you assume that one day you will be judged through something higher, through a god or a tin god in some kind of fairness, which has already for a long time become strange to you through yourselves, because you have, as a result of your belief, moved away from the truth, and therefore you have lost the truth that not a godhead, a tin god, or an idolized human being can give you fairness, but only you yourselves. 31. Only the strength of the character and of all the virtues through the creation and its laws and recommendations is unchangeable, and this strength of the character and of all the virtues you cannot find by an imaginary god, tin god, or a human being that you raise to an idol, but only in yourselves by turning to the real truth of all truth and following it in the wise as is pre-given through the creational laws and recommendations. And this true strength of the character and of all the virtues of creational kind is independent of any human opinion, and it is free of favor and partiality, of might, malice, revenge, hatred, and retribution. 32. If you do not use all your energy and power to free yourselves from the old and false, and from your belief in a Godhead, a tin God, or an idolized human being, then you will not be able to learn to understand the true fairness, which is as present in the core of your inner nature as is the true love and the truthly truth. And if you do not recognize in the core of your inner nature the true love, truth, and fairness, then you will also not be able to become new in yourself. Because only if you stand with the whole truth in the life and consciously strive for the evolution of your consciousness does the help arise from out of yourselves that you need to lead your life in accordance with the creational laws and recommendations as well as in true love, freedom, harmony, and in peace. 33. Truly, every single one amongst you, you human beings of earth, must help himself or herself through the recognition and following of the truth, which alone shows you the true way of the life that you have to go, and only on this way do you find the true existence which will not be given to you, if you do not tread this way. 34. Human beings of earth, you must become strong in the fight of the gewaltlose for the truthly truth, because you must lead this fight yourselves, each one of you for himself or herself alone, or you will go under. 35. Finally wake up and stand up in the fight of the gewaltlose against all evil and all darkness in you. Because only through doing that do you create the necessary energy and power in your inner to find and follow the real truth, as it is given through the creational laws and recommendations. But if you are weaklings, and you continue to cling to your belief in Godheads, tin gods, angels, saints, and idolized human beings, then the true life will be lost to you, as well as all the energy and power it possesses. 36. If you are weaklings and dependent on belief forms, then you will not be able to find the effective truth, and those few things that you may perhaps find from it, you will not know how to use rightly. And furthermore, it will be taken away again from you through your belief to which you were devoted in anxiety and fear, and because you are too cowardly to free yourselves from it. As a result, you use your energy and power for your belief-driven zeal in an incorrect wise, through which the ancient word comes true that belief is a drug from which the human being can hardly free himself or herself once he or she has fallen for it. 37. Truly, instead of building temples in order therein to wrongly pray to fabulated gods and tin gods and to spread false teachings of false teachers, you should build places of the truth in which only the real truth of all truth is taught, the truth of the creation, its laws and recommendations and their effects. And instead of belief events and prayer events, you should do events and festivities during which the truth about the creation and its laws and recommendations and the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, the goblet of the truth is taught, so that you human beings of earth will become, as whole humankind, knowing and wise in the effective truth, and that you follow the creational laws and recommendations in full responsibility consciousness. And truly, while learning the truth and during events and festivities in favor of the truth and its learning, you can be full of joy and happiness and fulfill every conceivable responsibility. 38. Bearing the responsibility is always the first thing you have to do, but the by far largest number amongst you human beings of earth, you push off the bearing and exercising of the responsibility onto your imaginary godheads, tin gods, angels, saints, and to idolized human beings, as well as onto your next ones or other fellow human beings. Because on the one hand, you see the responsibility as a burden with which you do not want to encumber yourselves, and on the other hand, because the bearing of the responsibility is out of cowardice, too much for you, or because you think that you are not responsible yourselves. 39. But the pushing off of the responsibility, no matter in what kind and wise it is done, corresponds to a self-degradation as well as to a cowardly submissiveness towards those who shall bear the responsibility. On the other hand, the pushing off of the responsibility is also a well-calculated consideration in the respect that without bearing and exercising one's own responsibility, the life can be lived all the more joyfully, merrily, and scrupulously. 40. So those of you amongst you human beings of earth who want to satisfy all your desires and wishes, you think that you can obtain everything without the bearing of your own responsibility, as well as that you can behave negatively towards your next ones and fellow human beings in an irresponsible wise. 41. If need be, your human laws and ordinances can be circumvented and conflicts avoided. So many clever ones amongst you can, in the name of the laws and ordinances, successfully commit criminal deeds and other law breaches, etc., which do not stand up to moral examination, but nevertheless bear big names and titles and enjoy the reputation of an especially able and successful human being. 42. Thus many amongst you human beings of earth are unrighteous ones who, despite your poor discernment, are able to live comfortably in accordance with your own views and your irresponsibility. And in your consciencelessness, no uneasy conscience pesters you, and also no unrest is shown that your doing is not right, and that you should do differently from what corresponds to your wishes and your behavior. 43. The truth is that the reality of the life is inexorable. Therefore, your wishes in this respect cannot bring about any deviation from the reality, because the creational laws and recommendations remain brazenly existent, so that what you sow will as a rule be what you harvest. And this fact says more than you can conceive, because the whole corresponds exactly to the process of the interaction as it is given through the creational laws and recommendations. 44. The interaction is so precise that out of a cause a distinct effect is determinable in advance, and the effect always contains more than the cause initially carried in itself, just as from a single sowed corn a multiple in the form of an ear arises. Therefore, you human beings of earth, you will be struck in manifold forms by this again as effect of that which you create and send out as cause in your thoughts and feelings, and indeed according to the kind of your volition in a negative or positive wise. 45. Be conscious that in a consciousness-based wise, and through your thoughts and feelings as well as through your deeds and your activity, you bear the responsibility for everything. And this responsibility does not first begin when carrying out the action, but already when the idea comes up and at the decision through the thoughts and feelings through which ultimately everything is transformed into the serious volition. 46. Consider, there is no splitting between the idea and its carrying out, if the idea is indeed realized, because everything belongs together and is a unity. 47. Everything always goes together, never just side by side, because the immenseness of the effects of the creational laws and recommendations, which are invisible to you human beings of earth, intertwine like a perfect and never-failing machinery, even with regard to your ideas, thoughts, feelings, deeds, and your activity in every respect. 48. And the laws and recommendations of the creation, of the universal consciousness, are universally equal, and so they also carry the whole in you and weave through every fiber of your body and your nerve cords and hold everything together. And everything is in mutual interaction and therefore functions perfectly. 49. Everything functions therefore according to the effects of the creational laws and recommendations which go through everything and without which no causes and no effects can occur. Hence, if false teachings speak of heaven and hell and of God and devil, then this is fundamentally wrong, just as it is also wrong to talk of good and evil powers, because all energies and powers are neutral in their kind, so also the negative and the positive, which only bring forth a distinct effect when they are brought together. Heaven and hell are not places, but rather conditions in yourselves which you create yourselves through ideas, thoughts, and feelings in your psyche, as are likewise the good and the evil which you also willingly put into action out of your ideas, thoughts, feelings, and through your own decisions. Therefore also your energies and powers are neutral in you human beings of earth. In consequence, you yourselves turn them into good or evil, and indeed through your ideas, thoughts, and feelings as well as through your decisions and your volition. Fundamentally, the negative and the positive are in themselves each a complete oneness, just as they result in a complete oneness when united in a right wise. But in a wrong union, they create terribleness, As for example, if you create evil out of your energies and powers through wrong ideas, thoughts and feelings as well as through a wrong volition. 50. There is only one negative that is complete in itself and one positive that is complete in itself. And through the uniting of both poles, a complete oneness comes out once more, and this oneness is creation given through the laws and recommendations as creational energy and power, which constantly undulates through all the creational and is inseparably connected with the creation and all its created creations and with everything that has come into existence through it. 51. The creational energy and the power resulting out of it can be found everywhere, in every drop of water, in the air, in the rocks and the stones, in every plant and in every life form. So there is nothing in which the energy and its power does not exist. 52. And just as everything is flooded through by the creational energy and power, so also you human beings of Earth are continuously streamed through by it, as swinging waves out of the spirit energy of the creation, through which the life ignites in you and nourishes it. 53. Through your special constitution of your consciously working consciousness, you take in the in-streaming neutral positive equalized creational energy and its power and pass it on through your ideas and thoughts, as well as through the thereout resulting feelings, out of which then, according to your decisions and your volition, the activity arises, your actions and deeds, and depending on the kind of your ideas, thoughts, and the therewith connected feelings, as well as the thereout resulting decisions and the volition, you automatically use the neutral positive equalized energy and its power out of your consciousness in a negative or positive, i.e. in an evil or good wise. Therefore, you use the energy and its power according to your own sense, and you yourselves fully decide what you in absolute self-responsibility want to do in the negative or positive, i.e. in the evil or good. This, however, is your greatest responsibility, which you must bear with your own free will as human beings. 54. Those amongst you human beings of Earth who often crampingly search for the right way of the life, you shall not make it so hard for yourselves. Instead, look in all uncomplicatedness simply upon the creational energy and its power which flows through you and animates you, and how you use it to create your ideas, thoughts and feelings which you form according to your own will and decision in the good or evil, for which you alone carry the responsibility. And if you look upon the animating, creational energy and its powers, then you will find therein everything you have to know without great effort. 55. And if you look at the creation-given energy and its power, then be conscious that it is only up to your thoughts and the thereout resulting feelings, as well as up to your decision, and will whether you want to bring forth good or evil through this immense and in itself neutral positive equalized energy and power. Truly, it is through your decision that the good or evil is given to you only, depending on what furthering or ruin-bringing thoughts and feelings you form in yourselves and bring into effect. 56. Do not strain yourselves in order to cramp yourselves in belief forms, belief exercises, and belief cults of religious, ideological, philosophical, esoteric, and other occult directions, as well as through all possible and impossible physical exercises and consciousness strains, because that brings you no true evolutive consciousness improvement, but only apparent successes of meaningless irrational teachings. 57. Give up all belief forms of any kind, because they are only useless and time-consuming senselessnesses which time and again become a distressful torment and self-flagellation which bring absolutely no gain for you with regard to your consciousness evolution and with regard to the recognition and responsible following of the creational laws and recommendations. 58. Your representatives, priests, and other false teachers, false prophets and their students, as well as the religionists, ideologues, and philosophers, the sectarians, masters, sublime ones, godly ones, and idolized human beings, etc., who preach to you the untruth with regard to all the godheads and 10 gods, all of which are fabulated imaginations. They are all modern sanctimonious ones in apparent bigotry. And indeed, even then, if they present the senselessnesses of their false religious, ideological, or philosophical teachings in a deep belief, which can never be proven as truth, because each belief is based on pure speculations and shows absolutely no concreteness of the reality. 59. Do not let yourselves be guided into the unreal through the false teachings which are irresponsibly preached by false prophets, by servants of gods and servants of tin gods, but instead let yourselves go forth in pure joy of the recognition that you can, through your simple and good-wanting thoughts and feelings, direct and use effortlessly the neutral positive equalized, unique and immense energy and power given to you through the creation to the best and to the good in the ample bearing of the responsibility. And according to your responsibility as well as your thoughts, feelings, your will, and your decision, the energy and its power has an effect, so you only have to responsibly use and direct it in the right wise to the best and the good. 60. The use of the creational energy and power in you, through which you can use your consciousness and create ideas, thoughts, and their out feelings, happens in uncomplicatedness and simplicity, and for this, no religious, ideological, or philosophical learning is required. So neither does it require a belief in a godhead, a tin god, or an idolized human being, nor in any esoteric and other occult nonsense. And truly, to use the creational energy and power in you, you do not have to be able to read and write, but you only need your clear intellect and rationality to recognize the truth, and out of it, to use the creation-given energy and power through which you are capable of having thoughts and feelings. 61. And truly, the creational energy and the power included therein is given to each of you human beings of earth in equal measure and indeed without exception. Thus no difference exists therein, because a difference is only given with regard to the level of the consciousness evolution, as well as concerning the degree of intellect and the rationality out of which also the fulfillment of the responsibility results. 62. The fulfillment of the responsibility is also connected with the perceiving of the reality of the creational laws and recommendations and their mode of functioning, wherein the perceiving of all things is also anchored, which does not happen through the consciousness directly, but rather through the unconscious, which comes before the consciousness, and which is not identical with the subconsciousness. Therefore, each perception occurs through the unconscious form, which comes before the consciousness, through which immediately unconscious thoughts and their outconscious feelings are triggered, after which, with a delay of 25 to 30 hundredth of a second, the consciousness and conscious thoughts themselves are included in the perception. 63. Just as you can also perceive the things of the reality, you are, if you are heedful and attentive enough, able to perceive the creational energy and its power in you through which you can, via your consciousness as well as your thoughts and feelings, achieve tremendous effects and direct the energy and power, and indeed in the good or evil, depending on how you willingly form and use everything in responsibility or irresponsibility. 64. If you use the creational energy and power that has been given you for the good and best in full responsibility, then you can be joyous over it and have a good self-feeling. Whereas if you squander it uselessly or use it for the evil, then tremble, because through the interaction that is pre-given in the creational laws you cannot escape the disadvantage which you create for yourselves through the ungood. The power of the interaction always strikes you, both in the good when you use it rightfully, and in the evil when you misuse it, and truly you cannot hide from this. 65. Therefore the good is just as brought forth in you through the pure neutral positive equalized creational energy and power as is the evil, and indeed depending on how you form them and bring them into effect according to your own choosing and will. 66. You are free in the use of the creational energy and its power, so you can form and bring it into effect according to your own choosing and will. But this also includes the responsibility which you have to bear and from which you can never escape. Consequently, you shall use everything in the good and positive so that you can bear the full responsibility for your ideas, thoughts, feelings, and deeds, as well as for all your activity in every respect. Also, you are recommended to nourish and cherish your thought world and your thereout resulting feelings and love, and let peace, freedom, and harmony prevail in you, in order to also carry forth everything to your next ones, your fellow human beings, and your whole humankind. 67. Also you amongst you human beings of earth who live far from the effective truth, and who are truth unknowers, unfair ones, conscienceless ones, unrighteous ones, and irresponsible ones, and who ignore the creational laws and recommendations. You can rejoice, because the same creational energy and power is given you as is given the fair ones, the righteous ones, the responsible ones, and the conscientious ones who are strong in their truth knowledge, and who, contrary to you, follow the creation. Given laws and recommendations. 68. You only need to use the creational energy and power in you. Refrain from making everything heavy for yourselves, and not forget that everything creational streams through you too, and that you are capable of giving everything a distinct direction according to your own volition and will. Thus in the good and in the evil, in joy and sorrow, in love and hatred, as well as devastating or upbuilding. 69. But consider, there is only this one creation energy and power, which you can not only use and bring into activity, but also strengthen and widen through your consciousness as well as through your thoughts and feelings. Apart from it, there is nothing comparable. So therefore also no God power which could cause any things in you. Because each Godhead is a fabulated imagination in insubstantiality, and hence not capable of any energy or power. 70. And the creation energy with its power alone bears in itself the secret that sooner or later the precious and valueful always prevails, that the darkness must give way to the light, the evil to the good, the hatred to the love, the unknowledge to the knowledge, the unwisdom to the wisdom, and the disharmony, the unpeace and the unfreedom to the harmony, the peace and the freedom. 71. But to ensure that all the high values of the love, the freedom and harmony of the peace, knowledge and wisdom will not be long in coming, you human beings of earth, you shall make a conscious effort and use the pure, neutral, positive, equalized creation energy and power in your consciousness to the noble, good, and valueful, and build up the truth, its knowledge, and its wisdom in yourselves. 72. Let the primal creation energy and its power be pure and unfolded in you. Make it stronger and develop your consciousness evolution out of it, as it is pre-given through the sense of the life. 73. And do not let your creation-given consciousness energy and its power fall into a weakening through wrong ideas, thoughts and feelings of a dullness and something impure, because you must use and direct the creational energy and power in such a wise that it is always striking and decisive. 74. Truly, if you only have a little heedfulness and attentiveness for your thoughts and feelings, then you will recognize and perceive for yourselves what is the good and what is the evil, and indeed without having to speak it out or ruminate over it. Recognizing the good and the evil in yourselves in heedfulness and attentiveness is the right way of the cognition, not however a dull rumination, because this brings no cognitions but only confusion and waste of energy and power. Rumination works like stringy morass, like a swamp which pulls everything into itself and paralyses and suffocates everything. 75. Be vigilant in your endeavors and connected to the gladness, so that you gain real cognitions. If, however, you give yourselves over to the rumination, then you will get confused in all sorts of things which you will never be able to fathom, and this will make you depressed and sad. 76. You cannot change things that happened in the past, nor can you make them good again. You can at the most give satisfaction for them, such as by offering apologies or by making amends in whatever form, because once something has happened, it is no longer subject to any change. 77. You can leave all things of the past behind you and take the way to the height of the truth and the reality and to the bearing of the responsibility at every moment, if you do not shrink back in cowardice from the truth and reality. 78. Begin to think of the pure truth and to bear your responsibility for your existence and for everything that you nourish and cherish in terms of ideas, thoughts, and feelings that you act and do and handle. When you have dirty and terrible ideas, thoughts, and feelings, clean them and build thereout good things and the best, because you are enabled to do this through the creational energy and power that is acting in you, so you can give everything a distinct direction through the kind of your will and your decisions through which you can reach the noblest and highest if you make an honest effort. 79. You human beings of earth in general, through your own ideas, thoughts, and feelings, as well as through your decisions and the free will, you determine the love and hatred, the harmony and disharmony, the fairness and unfairness, the peace and war, the freedom and unfreedom, as well as the fortune and unfortune. Therefore raise your head and your forehead to the truthly truth and to the creational laws and recommendations, so that you become knowing and wise therein, so you no longer call for a self-created terrible thing and none can befall you anymore as a result of your own doing. 80. Consider, through your free decision and your free will you can achieve anything you want, both in the good and in the evil. Therefore, always act in fairness according to the sense of the truth, because everything will always happen to you in a wise that corresponds to your own will, your thoughts and feelings and your responsibility form, which you then call destiny. 81. And if you talk about what happens to you, then you presume to claim that what happens to you is rightful or unrightful, even though you yourselves determine what befalls you and what is not, and thus you speak of a deserved or undeserved destiny, of reward and punishment, as you learn through your wrong human laws and through your religions and ideologies. 82. And when you speak of the destiny, then you mean that which befalls you through your own efforts, both in the fortune and unfortune, in the good and evil, although you presume to push off everything onto a god, tin god, human being, or a karma, and you do this only so that you yourselves do not have to bear the responsibility. 83. You also do not make thoughts about what the destiny actually means so that you could understand that the destiny is the outcoming effects of your own energies and powers of your thoughts and feelings, or the effects which proceed onto you through distinct causes of other human beings, through nature or through happenings and situations as well as through the universal connections. So therefore the law of cause and effect has its outcoming effect, in which the law of the interaction also takes effect. 84. The two laws of cause and effect and interaction have been given in the creation since the primal beginning. Therefore the big and enduring and indissoluble becoming and passing is connected therewith through the principles of the creation. 85. What becomes will also pass again. And in this process the becoming is the cause, and the passing the effect, whilst on the one hand with regard to the interaction a changeability, i.e. a change between this world and the other world comes about. On the other hand, the interaction is given in your current material life in such a wise that through your thoughts, feelings, actions, deeds, and through all of your activity, corresponding reactions, consequences, and effects arise. 86. The law of the interaction, as well as the law of cause and effect, and the law of becoming and passing animate the immense creational system of the universe, hold it together in constant motion in the process of the 311 trillion 40 billion, 311 million, 40,000 million years of the enduring existence of the creation, during which there is a constant becoming and passing, and again a new becoming. 87. And just as the law of the interaction functions in the large, so it is also efficacious in you human beings of earth, namely according to the principle. What you sow through your thoughts, feelings, actions, and deeds, as well as through all your activity, you will also reap. This is truly the activity in life in the entire creation, as it is untouchably and unmovably woven into the creational laws and recommendations in an ongoing outcoming effect. And these laws and recommendations in their all-embracing immenseness include everything conceivable and unconceivable for you and regulate even the tiniest speck of dust of a weight. 88. If you are heedful, vigilant, and attentive, then you can experience everything in yourselves if you only want to. Therefore, begin by the observing and perceiving of yourselves, but also by the environment that is visible for you. 89. Consider. What you call laws of the nature are the laws of the creation, as they are given through its laws, in which are also included the recommendations, and which are given to you as counsels for the fulfillment of the laws, because just as the laws include uncontrovertible distinctnesses with regard to their effects, so the recommendations are based on counsels which are to be used to follow the laws and to fulfill them in their evolutive and life-affirming effects. 90. And the creational laws are not laid out for punishment, but rather in such a wise that the following or not following of them brings distinct positive or negative, i.e. good or bad effects, which you determine yourselves willingly in logic through your thoughts and feelings, all your activity and your deeds, and through your actions. Therefore you yourselves bring about what is rightful and what is unrightful, and what you consciously create therewith that is good or suggestively and forcefully bring about that is evil. 91. The creational laws and recommendations are constantly in permanent action, and consequently they act timelessly and bring whatever you voluntarily, self-willedly, and willingly create in the evil or good. And consider, the only effects resulting from these laws are that which you create yourselves, because it goes according to the principle that if good is sown, good can be reaped again, but if a weed is sown, only a weed can arise out of it. 92. Fundamentally, it is such with you human beings of earth that you neither think about these things of the truth nor about yourselves. And as you do not think about the law-based happenings of the nature, nor about the laws and recommendations of the creation, you never waste a thought on what, who, and how you are. In consequence, these three questions also remain strange to you. What is the human being? Who is the human being? How is the human being? 93. What is the human being? Fundamentally, the human being is individually a Wesen which has come out of an idea of the creation, and through its laws, as a consciously self-thinking Wesen, with an evolution-capable consciousness, as well as with an own free will and own free decision-making power, for the purpose of the consciousness evolution, which is the sense of the life. In this regard, it is also important as a human Wesen to create in oneself the true being human and the real humaneness in order to be human in the real and true sense, which is expressed through fundamentally learning and following the creational laws and recommendations, where through the fulfillment of the being human and the humaneness occurs. In this sense, the whole thing means that the creation-given duties of the laws and recommendations are followed and fulfilled in the best possible framework, that also true love as well as inner harmony, freedom, and peace are created in an equalized wise and are also carried to the outside, and that all factors of what is evil, unfair, irresponsible, and unrighteous are fundamentally avoided. 94. Who is the human being? Fundamentally, the human being is primarily an individuum, a single individual nature with a consciousness block which forms the individuum and in which also the mental block is integrated. That is the consciousness, the thoughts, feelings, and the psyche. What else is given in the consciousness block is the character, the personality, the subconsciousness, the ego, and the memory out of which altogether the who of the human being results. Thus who he or she is through all the capabilities and factors of his or her consciousness block. The human being is in itself, through the consciousness block, and as a material individuum, an undivisible, a whole, just as he or she is an undivisible, a whole, together with the spirit, i.e. spirit form that animates him or her. And that says, as soon as the life extinguishes and thus the spirit form escapes out of the body and into its realm of the other world, the consciousness block also escapes from the body and goes into the realm of the other world that is belonging to it. Thus the primary individuum, i.e. the consciousness block, dissolves, because as such it can only exist as long as the body actually lives and is inhabited by the spirit form. So, when the life extinguishes, then only the lifeless, empty material shell without consciousness block individuum remains, although the human being as a material Wesen with a consciousness block is in himself or herself an undivisible whole. The human being is, however, not like that towards the outside, because he or she jointly lives and coexists secondarily through partaking of and participation in other things. So, for example, as a human being of his or her times, as a carrier of world historical ideas, as a child of the parents, as a husband and father, as a friend, employer or employee, etc. Through this he or she proves to himself or herself and to the outside world who he or she is by showing the factors and capabilities of his or her consciousness block, i.e. his or her individuum in the outer world. 95. How is the human being? Fundamentally, the human being is what he or she is in the core of his or her inner nature, i.e. what corresponds to his or her individuality that is based on the core of his or her inner nature, which, however, as a rule, strongly deviates from the individuality which he or she shows to the outside world. The core of the human individuality, i.e. the core of the human inner nature, is of creational nature, which strivingly pushes towards an evolution of the inner nature occurring through a consciousness evolution. But as a rule, the creation-given striving and natural instinct is ignored, and consequently the human being creates in himself or herself an own and outer, kind of the inner nature, i.e. individuality, which, so to say, as the chaff of the inner nature, surrounds its core. For this reason, he or she cannot really be how he or she is at the bottom of his or her inner nature, i.e. his or her creational individuality, because he or she decides himself or herself at his or her own free choosing and will how he or she wants to be, in which case he or she expresses this how to be through his or her self-created outer individuality. 96. Truly, you human beings of Earth, you do not think about these things at all, or not in great detail. But instead you let your immensely erring philosophers think for you, who do not recognize the truth of the things, but make themselves mere imaginations without comprehending the reality. And because you, like them, do not attempt to fathom the real truth of the things, you will thus also not become conscious of the great laws of the creational might which pulsate therein. 97. It is an implicitness for you not to think about the actual things of the truth, and hence also not about the creational laws and recommendations and their effects, and as a result you are faced with mysteries which need not be mysteries for you. 98. Consider all laws and recommendations of the creation have an effect on all things with absolute certainty and strength, not only on everything down to the coarsest and greatest and up to the finest and most tender, but also in all realms of the fine fluidalness and high fine fluidalness. 99. Even in each single happening, and in all motions in all expanses of the universe, as well as in all levels of the substantial, semi-substantial, the fine fluidal and high fine fluidal, and the pure spiritual, the creational laws and recommendations act in an absolutely unchangeable wise. So therefore also in the most tender developments of your thoughts and feelings, which must be assigned to the semi-substantialness. 100. Do not assume, then, that elsewhere in the incomprehensible expanses of the universe it would be different than on your earth or amongst and in yourselves, because in the whole being that is both visible and invisible for you everything is given equally. Thus every species brings forth its species, and every kind its kind, irrespective of what the form is made out of, be it material life forms or thoughts and feelings.